Antoine, il est toujours pas là, mais qu'est-ce qui se passe? On commence dans une minute. Comment ça, il est encore chez lui? Je fais comment, moi?
Hello everyone, and welcome to this new Odoo Insider session. Right on time for this live. So today you will attend a, let's say, regular Q&A session as you are used to. So if I quickly show you my screen with the slide here that we have. So you see that today indeed the topic is that you can ask any functional or technical questions you may have. And then next week you'll get a session about the point of sale with two experts. One expert actually and one person who was in the R&D who are going to answer all of your questions regarding the point of sale. And then, as you can see here in the calendar, another Q&A session, a pre-recorded session at the end of May because it will be a day off in Belgium. And finally, a tech session with the comeback of Emanuele for the, let's say a more deeply oriented session that you may have about some development modules and all of that stuff. Maybe before you, let's say, prepare your questions and send them in the chatter, I'm going to make as last week and answer one of the questions that we received during the previous sessions. And because I think it's also interesting for us to discuss it, and which is about here the new feature regarding the document app, and let's say how to upload and let's say link a document with the accounting module. Because indeed, from V17 to Odoo 18, we got some changes in the way to play with that. And it could be interesting to discuss that before we jump to Odoo 19, of course, that or maybe some of you who may not know about this change can get used to it right now. For that, I already here created a database that we can use for that here, in which, no, I'm not going to inspect the elements, but in which I'm going to bring you here to the document app there and take a look at the documents we have. Basically, now if I here in the documents application, so first what you need to know is that you have two actions that you can perform in the Kanban view of the document app. You can either decide to click on the document to get access to a preview of it, and here see this document, let's say, directly in your screen, or you can select the document by clicking at the bottom of it here to see exactly, let's say, the settings of this document. Basically, what we have is that we have a few actions available at the top of the document that allow you here to make some specific actions based on it. And of course, here, as we are in the finance folder, we have a button allowing us to create a vendor bill directly from that document. Here, it does not really make sense because I took a document which is an agreement, let's say, to create a bill, but it's just for the purpose of the example. But what you can see also is that once we do it, here we get some tags added here on the document. What is interesting is that if I take one of these invoice and move it to the internal folder, now I will see in my internal folder with the exact same document, which is this one, that I will not get anymore here a button allowing me to create a vendor bill. So it seems to be a difference based on which, let's say, folder I am regarding the apps and the actions that I can use. And indeed, that's because those actions are, let's say, folder related. To activate and make more actions available, it's very easy. I can simply go in the action button and click on the action button of my folder and decide to select more actions to be added to this folder. For example, here, I could decide to allow me to create a vendor bill directly from my internal folder. And so here, if I take a look now, I have my button, which is back to this folder. I could also do it in the exact, or let's say, reverse way, and remove some button to appear in some specific folder. The idea is to clean the interface and make sure that everyone can have some quick overview of what they can do and what they can play with when they decide to let's say here, work with documents. Then what is interesting is to know how to maybe, let's say, read those actions, understand what they do, and maybe also try to adapt the ways they are working. For that, here I can simply go in Action on Select and add a custom action to have access to all the server actions that are actually part of my document application. What we'll see is that most of them are actually executing code, but even if some of them are also just making some, let's say, predefined actions. For example, this one, add a tag bill, is just going to update my record and here add a specific tag on it. That's very easy to be read. But for example, if I go and create a vendor bill, here I'll get access to something way more specific, and which is in that case is a bit of code because we are executing something. For example, here what you can see is that we are going to apply on the selected records a specific action that is going then to create an account move, as you can guess, with some specific inputs that are going to be selected here in my settings. Of course, I could get more to I could know more about this action if I'm going to take a look at the code to see how they are defined. Let's take a look at it. So if I go in my GitHub repository, let's first check in the enterprise version to see if that's where it is. Yes, we have it. At least it is also defined here, and to see what is inside. Great. And here what we see is that based on the inputs that we provide here in the brackets, we are going to perform some activities. And for example, here, going to create some record in the moves, let's say in the account move model, of course, based on all the information that we provide. So it allows us to understand more, of course, about the actions that are performed, but it also allows us maybe to use one of these methods that is defined in this model, in order to be used, let's say, to do something else, or maybe to get inspired of it to make some different actions. And that's basically indeed what we can find in all of these different apps and actions that we have. For example, here, deprecate. Yes. So here we can find another way of doing it. So here there's no method, but that's something else that is just going to be done regarding maybe some tag that can be used. So yeah, that's it. So what you need to know, of course, is that, of course, then the actions that I have in front of me are some standard actions, something that I can check by taking a look at the metadata to see which is the ID here. And we see indeed that this is an ID coming from the standard of Odoo. While if I decide to create a new one, of course, it's going to have a different ID. And so it means, of course, that it will it may trigger, of course, an upsell if in case you are a customer of Odoo and you are using it on Odoo Online. Of course, you need then, of course, to take into account that this is, as this involves some Python code, you need to adapt it, of course, to the new versions that are coming also in the future. But at least, yeah, that's more, let's say, flexible than what we were used to know in the past, and that's also a very nice way to start using it. Maybe something, as I think about it, that are still linked to the document app and that we can maybe try together is something I noticed, but I don't know if we will get it in that version. Let me check. I will first go to my user settings, and here I will create a portal user. Like this, and make it a portal. So once it is created, now I'm going to check if there is a way or not to link that portal user to one of my employee, which would be, in that case, my portal employee. Let's say like this. And in the settings to see if I can select this user. I cannot. So you see here that this option is not available, because here my related user has a domain and some, let's say, specific criteria that allows me only to select some users that are, let's say, some internal user and not portal user. what I could try is to connect to the newest version of Odoo. And for that, I'm going to jump in the runbot in the master version. And here, we'll see that the behavior is slightly different. If I go to my users settings again, and here I'm going to create a new one as well, portal user, same with an email address, portal@user.com. That's good. Now, once it is created, what I can do is to create an employee for him. And now, in the employee section, I will get the choice of getting that portal user in the list. So it's a newly, let's say, available feature that is at least available in the master version for trial and experiencing how it works. The idea is the following. It means that a portal user has access then to the portal, of course, as any portal user. And the idea would be here to check, okay, but then can this user get access to the documents linked to the employee? So let's make a try. Here, what I'm going to do is to jump in my Documents app. All right, I will take a document, okay, meal expense, for example, and I will load it here in the HR settings. So it's in my HR folder. For now, my document, if I take a look at the settings, exactly with the action button here, okay, I will maybe refresh my page so that it opens. Okay, actually I can do it from there as well. I can click on action and see, yes, how to share my document. That's what I wanted to try. Here what I can see is that my internal user can view it, but for now, and nobody can see it in my document. What I'm going to do is I will keep that page open, and I'm going to go in my user settings with my portal user. I'm going to change the password. Here, yes, of course, like this. And what I'm going to do is to just try to connect to that page in an incognito window, like this, and see what happens. So, portal@user.com and my password. Great. So now I'm connected with this portal user. But actually I didn't make it a portal. I just give it the name, but it's true that it's not correct. Then here I need to, of course, specify that it will be a portal user only. It's a new version, so it's true that I need to learn a bit how it can be selected. Here I see role, member. Let me check a bit. Yes, to know more about those fields. Group user, group administrator. So no, that's not really that point that is interesting for us. Let's maybe check if we have something linked to the portal. Role portal. Okay, let's maybe check that box now and see what happens. And yes, I need to remove the role member. So yes, this one. Okay, maybe we just need to try again. It's true that now the interface has changed, so it's a bit more difficult for me to know exactly how to create a portal user. But I know what I'm going to do. I will do it in a different way. What I'm going to do is to jump in my contact app. I will make a small trick. Come to my employee, because I should get it. Yeah, portal employee. That's correct. And now I'm going to rent the portal access from here. And there, indeed, so portal at employee. I'm going to make it slightly different, that I don't have a duplicated data, like this, and grant the access. We're going to check what is done now. If I just look at my portal employee, say how different. Yeah, okay, here we have a label, external user, that is defined, and if I go at the bottom, I will probably see, yes, that the role is portal. at that place. So indeed, so the way of setting it is slightly different to what we are used to for now. Okay, I have my portal user. Know what I'm going by my portal user exactly. Yeah. So what I'm going to do is to change a bit my employee settings here to link it to the right user, because for now it's not the right one. And there I can take it and still have access to a portal user. So now if I'm jumping to the page that I had just next to it, but of course I need as well to change my user password. Like this, and there I can simply now connect again to my page. And now I have access to my portal. So the first step is done. Now what I'm going to try is to add a document, let's say to share my document with my employee and see if I can access it from his portal. And so like this, I can select then my employee here from my interface, make it a viewer, that's right, and share it. Now my document, if I click on share, I will see that it's shared with that person, in addition to the general access that we already gave. So now if I come back to my portal and refresh my page, now we see that the documents has appeared, and that allows me to access my documents as a portal employee in that case, like this. So it's a very nice feature then, because you could imagine, that you can, from this new version, so from Odoo 19, for example, to give to your employee that are not regular user, this portal user access, and still give them access to the documents that you may share with them, from the portal. That everything is centralized. You are not only communicating all of those data by emails as you could be used to in the past. That's also something that we can think of, especially in terms of payroll, and the fact that we can share the documents also directly with portal user without having to give them access to the database. If the only purpose for that, of course, is just for them to have access to the documents. So it's kind of a very nice improvement that was applied here in the database, in the new version of Odoo, and that we can already use in master. So then for the next intermediate version of for Odoo 19. That's one thing. While I'm thinking about this, I had something else in mind that we could think of. No, actually, I forgot. Okay, but anyway, it's not a big deal. Okay, so I think that was it for this first question. I see that there is not a lot of questions in the chatter, so don't hesitate really to ask any questions you may have. It could be on any topic, so feel free to ask really about anything, even some obvious questions that you may just want us to check together or that we want to investigate. Or of course, if about some new features that you could think of that are coming in the new version, of course, we can try to investigate about how they are coming. But yeah. For example, I see a question from Alexis in the chatter. Hi everyone, great to be here. Looking forward to learning and exploring how others are approaching operational evolution with AI. Of course, that's something that we can also discuss in the chatter together to see how AI could influence the way you are going to make operations in Odoo. I think it already has an impact basically on the users and on the customers of Odoo, basically because they are used now to maybe more than before ask the question first to the Odoo AI when they are getting something that is not expected, or maybe that's something that they just want to explore by themselves. And it's true that the AI has then changed the way we are supporting our customers for now. But with Odoo 19, we can indeed expect, especially as we saw here with the AI icon, to get more and more AI features included in the database, which will allow at some point, of course, people to be more efficient and to extract probably more KPIs and more data from what they are using in the database. So that's indeed something that we can look forward. it's true that also at Odoo we will probably change a bit the way we are going to implement the project to make sure to include that new feature and that new way of proceeding as well in the project of our customer, as it will be something pretty new for each of them, of course. All right, great. Next question from Vadim. Hello Antoine, in the timesheets, how can I differentiate the time spent on paid projects and time spent on non-paid projects? That's a good question. Let's maybe try to first set it up to see what we could think of regarding what is a paid project or not, because that's not something that is so obvious, basically. I'm going to create a service here, and the purpose will be to create on order, for example, a task in a project, let's say after sales service. That's good. And in that case, let's maybe try maybe first to make it as a prepaid service and make a different case then here with a service that would be based on timesheet. And so here I'm going to change my policy. All right, so I have my two services that are done. Now what I can do is to create some quote. First, let's to wind up my customer. Here, adding the service based, let's say, on a predefined amount. Oh, it's funny, I don't see it. Maybe I did not check the box so that it can be sold. It can be sold. Let's check. No, it is. Okay, that's good. No, it should appear. Yeah, but actually I'm also on the run, but I'm also on the master version. I'm going to come back to my database in 18.3 so that it's of course also more relevant for you as well. No, actually I'm in 18.0 in that case. Okay, so let's try again. Create our two products for that. So service prepaid like this. Create a task in here my, let's say, okay, office design project, and then a second one based on timesheets. And in that case, of course, I need to install my timesheet app, which is not the case for now. So it's loading. What I expect, maybe just to give more context about the question, is that we could make. I guess when you say a paid project, it means that the invoice has been created, and that the invoice has been paid. And so all of the idea here will be to understand how much we can, let's say, come back to this. Let's say, bring this status back here to the timesheet that we are looking at, and indeed try to extract it on that way. Because if we are only making a reference to the invoicing invoicing status, let's say, of the timesheet, it's much easier, of course. But here, if we are only thinking about the paid let's say the paid status, it will be a bit different. So now that I have my timesheet app, I can adapt a bit my service product here, and that's the timesheet one. And in that case, here to change it based on timesheet. Once it is done, then I'm going to, as I said, create two orders. The first one will be with my service prepaid, like this. Let's say that I sell 10 units, so that I get my task with the allocated time of 10 hours. Very good. I can create my invoice like this and confirm it. What I have here is that on my invoice, I have a field that is my payment status. So here, if I take a look at my fields, I have my payment status that is there, my payment state. For now, my payment state of that invoice is unpaid, and I can see it also by going in my list of invoices here and see that this invoice here of Azure is not paid. Is that in red? Because in red would mean that I have let's say reached my due date, and so that my due date is now let's say completely outdated, and so that I need to, of course, make a remember for my customer. But here, of course, it's still not paid at the moment. So this status, of course, is linked in a way to the sales order, which is linked in a way into the task, which is linked in a way to the timesheet. So indeed, if you are looking at, let's say, bringing that status back to the timesheet, there is probably a way to do it. It's not maybe easy, but at least we can try. So for now, then what I'm going to do is that I'm going to create here a timesheet for a paid invoice, like this. And so I'm going to mark here my invoice has been in payment, so that we can see that difference. And then I'm going to create a second sales order, a second quote for the same customer, no problem. In that case, based on the service on timesheet, 10 hours, we confirm it. Here, of course, if I put a timesheet there, so timesheet not paid. In that case, as it's on timesheet, now I can, as it is delivered here, but it's not delivered from there, so probably I need to, it's because I think my project is not billable. Is it the case? Yes. Okay, and now it is. Great. So now I can create my invoice. And this invoice, I will leave it as unpaid. Okay, so now I have two timesheet lines that I can use for my use case. And one of them, I marked it as in payment. The other, I mark it as not paid. And the idea is to see if we can use that criteria to filter my timesheet lines. For that, I'm going to, into my timesheet application, in all my timesheets, here in my list view. And what I'm going to do first is to take a look at my filter. When I create a custom filter from here, what I know is that the task is linked to a project. So I can first jump to my project ID. Then my project is linked to a sales order. No, like this. No, I don't see it directly. But it's linked to a sales, no. Okay, maybe I can do it differently then. Because I know that my task then is linked to a sales order item. Yes. Sales order item, which is linked to a sales order, probably, yes. And my order is linked to, may be linked to an invoice. And here my invoice status is not what I want. What I want is my invoices here that can be linked to my order, and check what is the payment status, yes, of those invoices. I'm going to check first the ones that are in payment, like this, and see what happens. And you see here that actually I get my timesheet from my paid invoice. If I change my filter now and make it as not paid, I see now the timesheet, from the invoice that is not paid. So it's interesting because then I see directly that I can apply those two criteria to take a look at the value of my timesheets. But of course, the person who are the most used to it will quickly understand that it's not, let's say, a very good way of proceeding. Why? It's because if I just make a comeback to my sales order, I need to know that my relationship in between here, my line, and my invoice status, and my sales order is very not a unique link. It means that I can have multiple services on the same sales order. I can have multiple tasks linked to one sales order, and I can have multiple invoices linked to one sales order, and multiple invoices with different payment status. In that case, the complexity become, okay, then what happens is if I have two invoices linked to my sales order, one of them is marked as paid, one of them is marked as unpaid. What should I display, and how should I organize my timesheet based on that? Okay, and so that would be indeed a bit the complexity. But here I see, so you correct it in the chatter, that you mean billable project, and that's completely different, of course, because it's much easier. Because, of course, as we quickly saw, a project that is billable, it's defined here in the settings. So with a checkbox is a very good criteria to make a group by, usually. And so if we go on all my timesheets, it's very easy then from here to group it by billing type. And basically here, I will directly see, you know, what is the first the invoicing policy based on each of my service, and of course the one that are here non-billable. And a good way then of taking a look at this graph could be here in my pie chart in my timesheet, and directly see what is the proportion of time spent that is non-billable and the one that are billable. That's basically what we also can use if we are looking for, let's say, measuring the performance of people in our company, of employees, if they are asked to invoice the time that they spend, by taking a look, okay, what is the non-billable time, non-billable part of their time, and the billed one, and see indeed how efficient they are. Of course, it implies the fact that the employees need to record all of their activities during the day, and so that, you know, they have as much timesheet as their working schedule at that moment. And that's what we do, for example, at Odoo. That's how we measure the performance of our consultant, is to ask them to timesheet both on customer projects, but also to timesheet on internal projects for meeting, in self-training, marketing, whatever, but at least we exactly know what our employees are doing during the day, and it allows us as well to maybe help them improving how they spend their time. And yes, that's criteria that we use. And if we just maybe take a look here at this billing type group by that it shows, what you could do is to save it by default and then take a look at my filters. And here I will see, you know, that my group by is based on something here that is called timesheet invoice type, which is probably a field on my model timesheet. We can check. Yes. Which is here a selection field. What we know is that this field, we don't select it ourselves, so it probably means that this, let's say this field is computed, and we could take a look at it if we go in the corresponding model here, the corresponding, yes, app. So it's not in enterprise, it's community module. Great. Sale timesheet, and if we go in the models and take a look at our, not account move line, but probably HR timesheet. Yes, here timesheet invoice type is computed based on this method, and this method here, yes, you know, is going to perform a few if, but, you know, taking a look at all the different combinations that we can have, taking a look, okay, do I have a project first linked to it, yes or no, and then you're going to take a look at if this project then as an SO line is linked to a product, and if it is linked to a product, as this product a certain invoicing policy, and so based on this, you know, the output of the invoice type is going to be different. But, you know, that's a very nice way, a very good example, you know, of from starting from something that is pretty simple, and then getting to the right information, you know, by first taking a look at the interface, and then maybe diving into the code to understand any questions that we may have regarding to this. Okay, I see that you start asking a bit more of questions in the chatter, so that's very good. As I said, don't hesitate, we are here for that. Of course, I have plenty of topics to discuss with you, but it makes more sense probably if those are your topics. So yes, feel free to do it. I see that there was a question about fleet. Arthur, maybe? Yes, okay, perfect. So when I activate signature in the delivery order, it allows me to get signature from the customer. Or can I add an extra sign or internal delivery, okay? For example, when inventory guy delivers a product to field service guy and gets signature internally. Okay, that's a good question. Here, what I would ask myself, you know, is, okay, then this signature should be shown by the customer or not, or is it just for internal purpose to keep track of all the different operations that are performed internally? If that's the purpose, what you need to know is that on any apps in Odoo, and by extension to the inventory app, if you are making an internal delivery and so an internal transfer, what you can do is simply for that to activate the multi-step routes. Yes. That's going to activate a few settings, and in particular the choice of having different location, and in that case, of course, to get the internal transfer operation type. If I create an internal transfer saying that I want to transfer one of my products from one location to another, let's say to my, I don't know if I have one in that case. Yes, I have shelf 1 and shelf 2. Good. So I have this one. Okay, so this could be indeed automatically generated based on rules, whatever, but here it's not what is important. What's important for you to know is that when you have this kind of transfer, you can still click on the action button and request a signature from here. And then when you click on that pop-up, you are allowed to select a template and select which are the people who are supposed to sign this template. In that case, it's an employee, and so we can choose who can sign it. We have maybe some different template that I'm going to check quickly if we have something with more than one employee. Yes, employee, and we see it's a case. For example, for this one, here we have 2 persons. So of course here I only take example of PDF related to employee stuff, employee management. Of course you can create any template that you want. But I just want to show you quickly. Well, it's first how you can load your template. So it's in the sign app in the template section that you can upload a PDF. Let's maybe try to download, like, I don't know, like a sales order, so that we have an example. Very good. And then go back to the sign app in the templates, and we'll upload the PDF like this. Okay, I'm going to, yes, zoom out. Perfect. And here what you can see is that we can directly drag and drop some fields inside of my interface as a signature field, and on it define who should fill it. And you have different roles that can be customized actually in the database, configure at least, to have more of them. And here you can simply select who should sign this part of the document, like standard, and maybe another one with the initials, and this one would be filled by customer. I predefined my template. I can leave it like this, but now if I come back to my internal transfer and request a signature, I will have access to this order and with the 2 profiles that I selected. What is good is that I can also predefine a signing order. For example, in your case, if the guy with the inventory guy is going to first adapt a bit the content of the template to add more information, so he's going to be the first one to sign then, and the second one will be the field service guy. What is good as well is that here it's marked to send it, okay, to the person that you define. You can, of course, and you can also sign it directly. Also from here. It's just that in that case, yes, maybe not in Odoo 18. I know that in newest version you have the option to sign it directly as well from here. Of course, in that case you send it, like to someone. You could make it easier, send it to yourself basically, and then just try to sign the 2 parts like this. So that's a way of doing it. So yeah, I think that's something to investigate, but at least you know that you can request signature from any apps with that process. Okay, so next question. So in the fleet module, how can I add components and services to the vehicle and link it, I guess, with an invoice such as expense module? Also the same for maintenance module. Okay, let's first install the fleet app like this, because that's probably right that there is not, let's say, a lot of integrations in between the fleet app and what you can find in the other apps. For example, as you mentioned, in the expense module, like you can create an expense and link it to an accounting move just after. You have the same, let's say, with an accounting move that you can link to an asset, for example, that you're going to depreciate in your accounting. So you have some out-of-the-box integration like this. Regarding the fleet module, it's a bit different, mainly because this may be considered basically as an HR app, and so depending on the HR scope that you are targeting, you may have some different behavior, and so it's difficult to build something that can be generic. But you're right that some people, some users of Odoo, don't use it for the HR purpose, but only for the fleet management, of course, which is also the purpose of the app, to make sure that we can keep track simply of all the different operations and stuff that could occur here on the vehicle. You have indeed the service option that is here, but that mainly allows you to provide information and to keep track of this information in your fleet app. And that's mainly this. And you have not really an option to link it to an invoice from that page. And you were mentioning as well add components, which is a bit the same. I mean, from here you can not really make some kind of, I would say, manufacturing order. It's not exactly the way you would do it probably, but of course to explain that you are maybe going to make a repair on your vehicle and to use some components for that. That's very interesting because I got a very similar question from a partner recently, and we discussed about that topic. And of course, we ended up making a few studio customization for that, but something that you could do as well with a bit of coding in that case. Just to give you an idea about how did we do it, our idea was to create a link in between now the repair app that I don't have here for now. I'm going to install it. So to create a link between the repair app and the fleet app, so that once I create a repair order, I can link it to a vehicle, and of course then from the vehicle I can have access, to the components that are used. So that's a way then to link, components then that are used. Of course, those components are booked before that to a vendor, and we get the vendor bill from that vendor. So that's how you get the link, related to the accounting. Of course, the use of your components for that vehicle. So let's maybe illustrate what I mean. Let's take here, that repair order, and I'm going to simply add a link here with made to one to link it to my vehicle. Perfect. Like this. So I could say that this repair order is linked to this vehicle. When I perform and confirm my repair order, I'm going to make some output of my stock regarding the operation that I did. And I can simply then come back to my vehicle here and simply add the one-to-many button, which will be all the repair orders that are done. I'm sure we could find a very nice icon for that, but I will not spend too much time on this. Yes, this one, perfect. And there, link it to the vehicle field that just added on my repair order. I need to find the right one, and this is the one. So, and we see it here. So that's good. So that's one point about the components to be used. About the services, in that case, it's indeed slightly different. How I would do it is then to just allow maybe here the fact to link one of my vendor bill, because I ask for a service, let's say to my service in my fleet car. And so here link it to an account move, like this, which will be my, let's say, vendor bill. And to make sure it's correct, I'm just going to create a domain here to make sure that the type of my account move will always be a vendor bill, like this. And that's it. And then here I can directly select the corresponding bill and link it to my car. So that's a bit of customization, of course. Let's say it's still limited, but at least you reuse and just create bridges that do not exist for now in between the fleet app and the rest, with the purpose of keeping all the tracks of this on the vehicle directly from your page. Of course, in that case, we limit the number of automations, but you could imagine, directly from here to have a button create a repair order, or a button create, a vendor bill, for a service. Then you just need to create the code, the Python code behind the server action to do it. But that's something, of course, that can be investigated, and that's what we were thinking of with the partner I worked with. And we just ended up indeed having some few server actions like this to automate and to ease as much as possible the work of the user at the end. So yeah, that's, I think, a way of answering this question. All right, next question. How can I get a report on my revenue but it relies on delivery, not sales orders. Okay, that's a good point. I think it's pretty easy, but maybe first we need to understand, let's say, what a revenue is. Again, I know I usually want to redefine the words that are used, but it's pretty important. Because, for example, the revenue could be the amount of sales that you perform. That you can take a look here, for example. Okay, I take a look at my sales, only the ones that are confirmed. And here I get the total of my revenue if I measure, for example, the total amount. But some customers may tell you, no, it's not the case. In my case, my revenue is what I invoice to my customer. And of course, it's also a good definition of that. So I could then go in my invoice analysis menu here, and I take a look at the untaxed amount that is, let's say, invoice in that case for maybe my customer. So those are two different definitions, okay? But I mean, none of them is incorrect, but it's true that you need to first define the one that you want. In your case, you mentioned sales orders, so I guess you make your revenue computation based on the sales orders and not the invoicing. So let's keep it like this. In that case, you see that what I'm going to do is to filter on the status of an order that is not cancelled, sent, or still in a quote status. So I take a look at sales orders, so orders that are confirmed. You could be more restrictive here. You can add another condition saying, I want my invoice status. No. Like this. No, not invoice status, delivery status, sorry. But I don't see it here. That's interesting. I don't see it here because I'm on my sale report model. And the sale report model is a very specific model because it's a computed model. It's going to take information from my sale order model, from my sale order line model, and display something that can be used, let's say, as an in-between solution for reporting. It's very useful, but it's true that in some cases, as this one, it could also limit a bit the way we are working, because, for example, in that case, we don't have access to the information linked to the delivery status. But what we can do is to start from the quote then, and from the sales order basically. But let's start from the quote to have a very general answer. I go in my pivot view, okay, I take a look at my total amount, but then I'm going to make a look first at my sales order again, and here add another condition to see the one that have a delivery status, let's say fully delivered. Good, perfect. In that case, I have nothing. That's very good. No, it's not really good, but it means that I just have in a database where I have nothing that is fully delivered. Let's maybe make a small test. Let's say something that I can deliver. Let's make something easy to see if it appears, basically. Let's say I ordered 10 apple pie, like this, and I'm going to validate the delivery. Great. Now if I start again my reporting here, so I add again my sales order filter and my delivery status to be in fully delivered. Now I see, let's say only the sales orders that have this status. Of course, my answer is not complete, and that's also the purpose of my thinking, is that the fact that here I only take a look then at sales orders that are fully delivered, but maybe I could have some sales orders that are partially delivered. In that case, what we have is that we should make the difference then based on the quantity delivered per line. And so here, basically, as you can see, on any orders like this, I have for each of the line my quantity ordered and my quantity delivered. And basically here, I could take another product like this. In that case, my sales orders will become partially delivered. So if I take a look again at the same reporting that I did, you will see that it will not appear anymore because my status has changed. And so my reporting is not good. At least it's not complete. So here if I make fully delivered, it will disappear. While my apple pie is still delivered, so I could still measure my revenue based on that. My idea, to make it easy, let's say there is two ways. The first way could be to start from the reporting that we discussed before and to only take a look at the quantity delivered in that case. Here I have my quantity delivered. I could group it by product like this. And then, but it's true that it will not be, let's say, also the best answer in that case. But what you could do is to insert it in a spreadsheet like this. so that you know exactly, okay, I deliver those products, those quantities, let's say, for this product. And then based on a simple VLOOKUP, so let's say measure based on delivery. Then second step could be like you start from your products, you make them in a list view, and you just insert this in the same spreadsheet like this, and then you just retrieve the sales price of your product from there, and the sales price is in the column E, so 1, 2, 3, 4, like this. Yes, there is 2 comma there. Great. So you see now I get my price. I have some NA. Why? It's because here my name is my simple name, not my display name. So I could change it to make it work. Yes, and now I get it. And finally, here you can simply say this is the multiplication between this, and that I get my revenue per product, and basically the total revenue then would be the sum of this until this. I have still some NA, yes, okay, because some products are not known. That's because I did not import it, the whole list of them. So yes, I mean that's you get the point. So basically that's how you can do it, and finally you can measure the total revenue like this. So that's a way of doing it in spreadsheet, which is a very good way, because then your spreadsheet is going to be, let's say, dynamic, which means that you can upload it afterwards. You know what? I still want to go until the end. I think I got something like maybe 100 products, so it should be good if I do it like this. There are some shortcuts for that. It's true that I use a lot of spreadsheet, but I'm not used to the shortcuts, so I do it in the old-fashioned way. But at least it's gonna work. And here, yes, I don't have any NA anymore. My total, I don't care. I can remove it. And basically, then I get my total revenue. So that's one way of doing it. So total revenue based on my delivery again. So that's one way of doing it, as I said. Another way of doing it could be to make it from my sale order line model, but it would be the same result, but just to show you maybe what it would look like. I will create a menu to link it to sales order lines, exactly. Something that I'm used to, because it's usually interesting to do it when we do some reporting. And in my sales order line, I can activate my pivot view. And here I can also measure something based on the delivered quantity. Yes, delivery quantity. Here, that I can link it directly to the unit price. You see, like this, I can remove the count, I don't care. But then you see, I have my delivered quantity that is computed, my unit price that is computed, and I can probably just make a computation between both to make it work. And so basically like this, like I can just group it by product and replicate the same thing as I did before. Here it's better because in that case, I take the unit price of my past sales orders. You know, maybe the price of my product are going to evolve in the time, and so here I just really take a look at the values that I got in the past, which is very good. Of course, in that case, in the example that I did in my spreadsheet, I was making the assumption that the price don't evolve, or at least that I don't care to see if my price evolves to compute my revenue, which is probably not correct in most of the case. Okay, so anyway, here you get probably a few examples about how to do it. All right, next question. So I have a customized app for check approval before payments in Odoo. I need app like WhatsApp to be used in mobile, where I can get check approval through it. Yeah, and second part, how to configure to print check from Odoo to printer directly. Odoo SH and not IoT. Okay, Okay, so let's see the first question first. So you have customized an app you need for the approval of check before payments in Odoo. I need app like WhatsApp. I don't know what you mean app like WhatsApp. If the purpose is just, to extract that feature of approval to make it a unique app outside of Odoo that people can simply use for the approval of the check. To be honest, I don't know first if it is possible. Maybe it is, and if it's advised as well to do it like this. Of course, you could do it with some kind of API. So first, of course, you need to develop the app. That's completely right, and then make sure that when the people connect to the app, they can, of course, make some actions in the database of Odoo. But you cannot. There is no tool in Odoo, to just extract one feature and make it become an app, to be used in the mobile phone only for that purpose. Of course, you can install the Odoo app on your smartphone and probably use the same app from there. But it's true that if you're on Odoo SH, that's probably different. But it should be checked actually, because I guess you can still connect with a tablet or anything to Odoo through the app, even if it is on SH. At least from the from a browser, that would be the same. And of course, you can use it from there. But in that case, people need to be users, of course, and need to have the access to Odoo to make it like this. If your question is asking, can I get this approval rights to someone who do not have access to Odoo through an external app, indeed, that's not something that you can do, let's say, out of the box. You need, at that moment, to think about an API or something like this to be able to make this action occur. I hope I answered your first question. And the second one, how to configure to print check from Odoo to printer directly, but without an IoT. To be honest, I'm not sure it's possible. Once again, it's true that actually we saw that, on a lot of places in the interface. The print button actually is never printing anything, at least if you don't set it up before. It's always going to generate the PDF, and then you need by yourself to come here and to explain that you want to print it, on one specific printer that you have in your on your network. So that's indeed something that should be taken into account. So yeah, that's one point. Second is to make sure then that you so that means it is in standard. When you want to skip that part, you need to have an IoT. And I think that if you don't have an IoT, you will not be able then to send the information to your printer directly from Odoo. Once again, at least if you use the standard features of Odoo. To be honest, I don't know about all the apps that are available online, and if some could replace that IoT need that you have. But as it implies a bit of hardware in that case, that's maybe not something that you will be able to achieve without an IoT. If the problem is the IoT itself, the fact of having the hardware and so on, let's say on site, think about the fact that there is also the virtual IoT concept, virtual IoT box, that you can play with. So here it's in French. Let me switch to English. Yes. So it's on a Windows computer, as I see. To be honest, I'm not an expert about that topic, but that could be an option to investigate. And you know what? As I'm thinking about this, I'm not an expert, but luckily next week those will be 2 point of sale experts that will join the session, the usual session. And so you can keep that question maybe for next week, because they will give you a very let's say good answer on that topic. I'm sure. Okay. Next question. Hi, we are using an enterprise version of Odoo 16. I am creating a manufacturing order with components and positive quantity. Then confirm the manufacturing order, then enter the produced quantity for finished goods, but consumed quantity for all the components will be 0. How to proceed further with 0 components? Okay, let me try to put your explanation in Odoo and maybe I will give you the chance to correct me if I'm wrong, okay? Because I just want to make sure that I understand clearly the need. So first I'm going to take a look if I have some bill of materials in my database. Yes, I have. For example, this one. So what I'm going to do, so what you are saying is that when you are creating a manufacturing order for the desk, but you are in 16, that's right. Let me of course jump in a 16 database. Of course, if I don't, it will not be relevant for you. So like this one. Great. And same, I'm going to take a look at the bill of materials to see if I have something. I have the same. That's good. And so manufacturing like this, and I will create one for my desk combination. Okay, so that's the first point. So of course you create it with components and positive quantity. Positive quantity is, I guess, this one, of course. So you are creating, let's say, 3 desk combination in that case. Then confirming the MO, like this. Then enter the produced quantity here. So you say 3, like this. But you make it the consumed quantity for all the components to 0. And Odoo do not let you mark it as done. Indeed, for at least one of your components. Okay, so at least I was able to reproduce your case, which is of course a bit weird, is the fact that you are able to produce something from nothing. But I guess we just don't have the global picture about your need. But it's true that's why of course you get this error. It's because Odoo assumes that at some point you need to do something and to provide something to create something. What I would like to try, because I don't know if it's possible or not, would be to take then my desk combination like this. And if I remove all of my components, what will happen? So here, if I say that actually I produced 1 component, I mark it as done. Consumed 0, yes. Okay, so we see that in that case it works. So if you don't provide components at all, it's going to be removed. Maybe what you're going to tell me is that you fucked about it, and maybe you need to have the information about the components, even if you're not going to use them afterwards. If it's just a question of providing the information to the person using the manufacturing order, maybe what you could think of is simply to create, I don't know, like a work order operation. You know, let me do that maybe to highlight what I mean. If I go on my desk combination and add an operation here, my table, like this, and let's say that I upload a PDF, I will take my order that I mentioned before, and yes, a work center here. So like you just basically use it as a workaround, saying, but basically if then I need to produce my manufacturing order again for my desk combination, actually there's a lot of desk like this. Here I can remove my lines, I don't care. Actually I could also have 0 line in my bill of material in that case, but at least on my work order here, I will get information basically based on how should I proceed to manufacture it. And so, I mean, all the information that are stored here, but at least I don't have components indeed to be consumed. And so I can basically, so this is the one, validate it, okay, like this, and mark it as a thing that are consumed to 0. It's funny because this pop-up allows you indeed to put 0 quantity as the quantity consumed, okay? But of course you cannot if you leave the lines on the components that are defined below. I mean, tell me if in the chatter maybe if if this answer is good for you or not, if it covers the needs, and yes, and we will see maybe from that how we can proceed. Next question. We have V16 Odoo as well. How can we use quality control, but before the purchase order, or quality control, we check the manufacturing place before we buy from them Yes, and I think the line before is the question from the question I got before. So about the sales order revenue I just mentioned after, yes, you said, I think, that you were thinking about my net profit. Yeah, no problem. But I guess my answer is still the good one. It's just, yes, net profit is this. Of course, you don't speak about margin. Margin would be good as well, because you can still take into account the cost, in the computation, if you want to adapt it. So yeah, but in the two cases are working. So then that's probably good also for your question. All right. Yes, and also I forgot to answer. I will first answer the question about quality control, but then also I forgot to answer, not this one, but just above, about the fleet app with the maintenance, because I addressed it, yes, from the fleet application, but not from the maintenance module. So of course I will be able to maybe discuss quickly about this as well just after. But first, the question about Odoo 16 and the quality control. So what you want is to check the manufacturing place before we buy from them. So when I mean the manufacturing place, you probably mean on the vendor side. So make sure that then you only want to approve the purchase order if you have a guarantee maybe from the vendor about where the goods will be manufactured. If that's the case, if I understood well your question, maybe quality control is not the best case for that. But you know what? Let's still try to see if we have something that can do the job. It's true that I cannot assume or assess if it is the case or not. So yeah, let's see quickly in the quality if we can target something else that a transfer of goods. So quality here, and quality check, no, quality point, like this control point. And there, yeah, operations will always be something related to the stock. So I cannot really make it then before the move of my stock. And in that case, as I assume in your question, you want to make it before the purchase order. So once you are still, maybe then at that moment, in the request for quotation status. So for example, this one. Of course, what you could have, as you see actually in the chatter, is just a reminder with something like this, as easy as this, checking the competitors. You have an activity assigned to the person who created the purchase order, something that you can very easily do by just here creating an automation rule. At the let's say on the save, when you create the purchase order, and you create an activity here to my vendor in that case. Yes, I could even, let's say, take a look at the fields that define who created my purchase order. Created UID. No, like this. And say to do check the manufacturer place before confirming. I know it's very simple, but I mean it still does the job, because you know then what you need to do. Okay, activity. Of course you can give it a larger name, but I don't have much inspiration. So now if I'm just going to create a new activity here and say a new purchase order, I get then a reminder to check the manufacturing place before confirming. So it's not something that is blocking then the customers from moving on, but at least that's something that they can put in place very easily to get that reminder if they forget. You could also think, no, but I want this activity to only be triggered for some specific vendor. In that case, no problem. You can apply it only, if the vendor is one specific vendor that you have in your list. For example, Abigail Peterson, that you are sure that is only going to create something once you create a purchase order for Abigail. So that's the easy solution. A more constraining solution that you can think of would be to maybe, for example, here add a field on it. Let's say link to a contact, to the contact model, that you could call the manufacturing place. like this, and saying, for example, that this field is in read-only if the status is different from RFQ. That's only at that place that you can define it to continue. So you get then that field that is available here. What you could do then also is to say, but I want this field, for example, that's an option, to make it required if my vendor is Abigail Peterson. So that now in that case, for example, for Azure Interior, I don't need to define it. But if now I want to assign it to Abigail Peterson, I cannot save without providing my manufacturing place. So I need to think about it. But here it's a bit constraining because you cannot save. So, okay, you cannot even send it to Abigail Peterson. So it's not probably the best option in that case. So let's remove the required condition. In that case, like this. But what you could do is to make then a condition on the confirm order button, which would be, we add an approval step. The approver, yes, okay, let's say Mitchell admin. But I would prefer to maybe put a group. So let's maybe put a group, say purchase admin, yeah, exactly. Like this, but put it on a certain condition here, which is that my manufacturing place is not set. So if my manufacturing place is not set, I'm just going to need to ask my administrator to confirm the purchase order. So I cannot proceed if I'm not the person in charge of confirming it, like this. And so that here, if I start again, it is not defined. But in my case, of course, I am a purchase admin. So I'm just going to remove my access rights for 1 second to see what happens. So I'm just going to put it as a user. That's good. And now, if I'm trying to confirm that order, I cannot. The approval is missing, so I cannot proceed until I define my manufacturing place. So, but I can still print, I can still discuss with the vendor, and once I get the information, of course, I can define here what is my place to be set up. You could even add more conditions, saying yes, but based on the. It's just that here, of course, I don't have a lot of context, but maybe you have some criteria saying that the manufacturing place is good or not. And then, of course, you could make it here, make the button even more restrictive depending on all the conditions that you may think of regarding the manufacturing place. So I think that's a way, once again with Studio in that case, but to easily, let's say, reproduce a quality check for that case. So before going to that question, so I will come back to the maintenance question because we discussed about the fleet app, but not about the maintenance app. So, which is not the maintenance app. No, it is, but I just did not install it yet. So let's install quickly the app. So in the maintenance, of course, you can maintain some equipment that you may have, but it's true that those, let's say, maintenance operations are not linked again to some, let's say, vendor bills that you may have in your database. So that's something that you could, once again, modify, of course, by modifying the view, adding a main-to-one field to make the link in between the maintenance request and a vendor bill that would have been performed by someone else. Okay, so my answer is a bit the same as for the fleet. But here, the thing is that you have an integration already with the manufacturing order, let's say, model that has been done, and which allows you, for example, to say, no, but actually to make that maintenance, I need to make an operation, a dedicated operation, and then keep track also of the components that are used for that. So my answer is the same. So here you have still this option, of making the link in between a maintenance request and manufacturing order to make, let's say, the move, the stock move. About the accounting, that's something different. That's true. What is good, let's say, is that what you could think of, is saying, okay, I have a maintenance request. I cannot perform it myself, so it will not be an internal task. I need to ask someone for that, and then maybe maybe just here add the button to create automatically then a purchase order. contact a vendor, and then all the rest will be done automatically from here, depending on the service that you purchase. But that's it. And I mean, here I think about an automation, but you could also simply, once again, make a many-to-one field, link it to the purchase order that you create. Very simple, so that at least everything is tracked once again from the maintenance app. So yeah, about the fleet and maintenance app, let's say the link with accounting is not done. That's something that we also discussed a lot with people in the past regarding the machine and tools that we have here. You know, the fact that we of course can record it, but we cannot link them to a vendor bill. So my monitor is in my equipment, but is not linked to a vendor bill. And it's true that this link is not done yet. So if you are purchasing this monitor first to a vendor, then you just record your purchase order, your vendor bill in Odoo, and then you need to manually create the equipment for now because there is no integration in between the two apps. And so that's something to take into account and to adapt according to what you want to do. All right. So we discussed about the quality control. We discussed about the maintenance app. Let's dive to the next question. Great. I want to set up custom mail server using Catch-all with a personal email server. Can you please describe the logic? Yes, I will try at least. The thing is that, yes, I will try to show you to describe the logic. I will probably not be able to reproduce it now, but so that you get the purpose. You know, when you send an email through Odoo on a standard database as this one, maybe I have some emails in the queue. I have. Exactly. That's very good. So because here what we see is that, okay, we see from who it is sent. We see to who, yes, what is, let's say, which is the sender, which is the receipt, and here also what is the reply to email address. In that case, what we see is that it's composed of the Catch-all parameter, and then here's the domain of my Odoo database. Basically, just, of course, the domain of Odoo, so the email server from Odoo. What's important is to notice that people, when they reply to your email and they reply to this Catch-all, the answer will be brought back at the right place in Odoo. That's because your, let's say your email, the email that is sent out by Odoo is composed of a lot of information, and especially the Catch-all parameter is going to bring back your information back to Odoo. Of course, some customers complain about this, so they don't want to get, let's say, maybe the .odoo.com, or maybe they just complain about the email limit and want to use their own email server, or they want to get their own reputation and get very good rating on their emails and not get the one from that is standard in Odoo and that is shared among different databases. All of these are good reasons to move to a dedicated email server. In that case, indeed, you can get rid of this. But in that case also, you need to make sure to make the right redirection in between, let's say, the original email server and the new one. For that, there is a nice documentation that you can find, outgoing email server Odoo. I always redirect people on that page when it comes to this question, because I think it's the most relevant one. Because here, basically, for example, about this one, is going to explain a bit the logic. Maybe not this page. Or is it, should I read it? Yeah. Okay. Well, yes. Also, you have some documentation, let's say, explaining you based on Google and Azure, you know, if you are using those ones, you know, to make sure that you can connect it in the right way and make sure that the setup is correct. But basically, what happens is that people are going to receive an email address, you know, a reply to which will be Catch-all at mydomain.com, you know, the custom domain that you choose. And by replying to this email, you will need to put something in place to make sure that it's going to be redirected to the original Catch-all at domain.odoo.com. I think that's something like this that is the logic. It's true that I'm not maybe the best expert on that topic, you know, to answer it on the fly. Maybe check the documentation first and make sure that maybe you don't find the right answer on that, let's say, to start with. And also, if you want to discuss some technical topics as this one, you could also take a look here at the session on the 5th of June with Emanuele, where you will have the chance, of course, to discuss that with him and see exactly how it works, in details regarding the very technical point of view. But in most of the case, when my customers decide to use their own email server, this documentation is very good and it allows them, to move on very easily with this logic. So probably that could be enough for you as a first step. This question I already answered, so it's the next one then. How can I create a server action to create an activity for HR in the employee birthday? That's a good question. So first, it would not be a server action. I get your point, but here it would be, at least I think, a scheduled action. So a scheduled action that is going to check all of my employees on a daily basis, maybe let's say very early in the morning, and check if one of those employees has an email, a birthday. So that is, let's say, the same date as of today, of course, just with the exception of the year. So that's the logic, because if I take a look at my employees here, so I will get date of birth, exactly. So let's imagine that Abigail's birth let's say, today is her birthday. Okay, so that's how I can set it up. Then what I need to do is to check this value and make sure, of course, to know if the birthday is today or not. As I said, you need to go and use a scheduled action. I can try to do it, but to be honest, once again, you need to spend a bit of time to make it also in the very right way, because the scheduled actions always involve a bit of code. What you can do anyway is, let's say, so birthday activity. I'm going to give you the logic maybe, and then we will see how to use it afterwards and see also if it's valuable to do it like this or not. I will, in a second step, maybe discuss about the standard ways of doing it without having some code in the database. So every day, let's say early in the morning, so that's how you can change it. Here, what you are going to do is for employee in records, check, say, then the birth date is employee dot birth of date of birth, which is birthday. Okay, let's already try this. Okay, I already have an error. Yes, I think that's because here my records, like I need to say that my employees are coming from my environment HR employee. And then put employees here. Yes. So now it runs. So that's the logic. And then once you get it, like you get the birth date that is here. You can probably say that today date is something like date time dot today. Yes. And then you make something like, but that's where it becomes a bit tricky, and you need to check a bit the Python library for that, like datetime Python library here, to see if there is something that we can do. Yes, to only have access to the month and the date, but not the year of the corresponding date. So here it's time delta. maybe we could make it like this. So if we put birthday date day and put it like this, does it work? Yes. Okay, so that could be a good point then, because we could. I know that maybe some developers in the chatter will complain, but of course I do some pseudocode. Okay, here we could make it way more efficient, I'm sure. But so please understand that it's alive. And so here I'm just going to make it like this. Great. And finally, just make sure that if this here, you need to then create the activity. Create the activity is not so complicated, but same, you need to, let's say, make it something like this, like environment er activity dot create. But it's just that here I'm just going to test further that it's going to work, and for that I'm just going to raise user error like this. Let's check. Yes, it doesn't. Maybe that's because, well, I think I won't go further on that topic also, because I think you get the point about the logic. I mean, here's just a question about the code here to make sure it's the right way. Basically, you need to just extract the date and the day and the month on the birth date, the day and the month on today's date, and compare them, and do the action that's good with that. It implies some code, so if you are good at coding, you know how to do it. So that's basically something that you can do, and ChatGPT can also help you with this. I will just not going to ask ChatGPT now during this live session, but also if you want to keep things standard, which is also a way of doing it, it could be, of course, to know that if you go in the employees app, you could decide to activate the calendar view here and use the date of birth, as the date to be chosen. And basically here, and then I get the calendar. So if I come back to it, I get the calendar showing me indeed that today is Abigail's birthday. So it's a way, of course, to very easily see that, just by taking a look at how it's done. That's something that, for example, we do at Odoo. Like all of our birthdays are set up, in a calendar like this that people can access. And I mean, it's a nice way of checking it. That's the first point that you could think of. A second point maybe could be to use a dashboard for that. But yeah, I'm not really sure to see what would be the purpose of this. To be honest, to see, let's say, to imagine how it could be useful. But yes, those are some ways, basically, to, if you really want to avoid having some development. But just for having a reminder for the birth date is maybe not something that you would invest too much time maybe to develop something related to that. So schedule action is still a good idea, because it only involves a few lines, and basically you can get a nice solution with that. But yeah, I think that's it. Okay. Next question about manufacturing order. Can I produce services such as final product for a service center? Can I use to produce service such as final product for a service center in the manufacturing order? It's just that the question, I think, is asked in a way that it's been a bit confusing to me. So maybe if you can respell it in the chatter, that's good. But from a general point of view, it's true that a service cannot be manufactured in Odoo. Okay, so you have to take a decision, regarding if it is a good to be manufactured or a service. And basically, when we choose a service, we want to create a project linked to it with a certain task that are going to define the service and what is inside the service if we need to work on it. And those tasks can involve products. Okay, so that's mostly how I would advise you to go regarding the process. So it's to say, so if I go on my product, again, there's maybe a field service something, no, but I have my service that I created before. Yes, this one is good, I think, yes. So here I have a service, that is going to create, let's imagine a task in my field service app. But I don't have field service, that's right. Okay, let me install quickly field service that we can check. Because if the idea is, okay, I want to sell a service to a customer, but to use components for that, I think that's using the field service app could be a good option for that. That you can still use, let's say, components. You can still define what you should do as actions with the task, and at the end, then achieve the goal that you want to reach. And so if I come back to my products, I guess that my IT maintenance service will not. I can only link it to the field service. And so if I sell not Azure, my service with the IT maintenance service, like this, I get a task then in my project in which I can consume products, like this. And so make sure that I can, of course, like this, consume them and make them out of my stock regarding what can be used. If you want, of course, you can, of course, because by adding products, you will add them on the sales order. But you can, put the quantity to 0 so that you don't invoice them by default, or put the price to 0, okay? Not the quantity, of course, but at least the price, if you want them to not appear on the customer interface. Of course, that's something that should discuss a bit more regarding the need, to see if it's a problem or not for the end users to see it. But that would be my idea, not changing too much the behavior of the manufacturing order, but more diving into the project app, field service app, to see if it can meet the needs here of the service that you explained. All right. Next question from Vadim. Will there be? No, there will be. Okay, there will be an AI masterclass just before the Odoo experience. Can you give some more information about the content of the class? I have Odoo 18 online and activated multi-companies. For each of these companies, I put in place a dedicated domain. Okay. I don't know if the two questions are related. Okay. But about the first question, to be honest, I didn't know they were going to be an AI masterclass here at the Odoo experience. Let me just check quickly. I will take a second for that to see. Who is going to give it? Because I don't know actually. So upcoming. And when actually I don't know if you, because if we go on the page of Odoo experience, (2025), all right, masterclass. So okay, so here you get a bit more of idea than about the content of the masterclass. Okay, so that's basically first what you can take a look. Of course, I cannot help you more because I was not aware it was going to be given, as this content is completely new. Still, I can maybe tell Antoine about this because he's going to be the next one to give the next regular Q&A session. Maybe to investigate a bit more about this topic. Indeed, it's pretty interesting that you can get to know more maybe about who is going to give it and indeed maybe what will be the content. It's a masterclass, so people who are used to it know exactly how it works. So basically you have a bit of theory and a bit of practice. So you get usually then the first question let's say a first introduction to the theory of the new tool, and then you will get some use cases to be performed, let's say, by yourself, and you have an expert on site to help you with this. So yeah, and you have here a bit more about the explanation of the content. So yeah, pretty exciting indeed to see how it will look, but yes, I don't know who will give it. All right. Can I ask you a question about Odoo? Sure. Sending messages with business mail during the use of this Odoo system drop the spam box. Maybe what you can think of here, it's probably a question of once again of an email server setup, and that's the case when you don't do this following operation. So I will come back here, on my documentation regarding your own email server. Even if you don't use your own email server, there is something that you can still do to make sure that you don't, let's say, make your emails end up in the spam box of your recipients. And it's that point, it's to configure the SPF, DKIM, and DMARC. And this is something that you see here in the setup, in this small documentation that you can see online. So it's a setup that you can perform, on your own email server. So if I take my example, okay, so here if I look at my database, so my domain of my email is odoo.com, of course, but my email server of my database is this one. So it's not the same. So there is a mismatch, in between my two domains. To make sure that Odoo, of course, I synthesize what I mean here, but to make sure that Odoo is going to understand that I can use my email address for this specific email server, I need to specify those three parameters that we saw here to make sure that you can improve a bit how they are working. And if you did not do it, then first try to do it to make sure it can work. So, and yes, this is pretty well known. It's not something related to Odoo at all. You need to set it up outside of Odoo, okay? So that's not something that you need to set up in Odoo. And you have, some very common providers set up that you can access, and probably yours is in one of them. And we usually advise that through our customers to test it afterwards on this small email address. It's in French, but basically you will understand how it works. You just get an email address here that you can use. Then you need to send an email, let's say create a contact, in a database with this email address, send him a quote, and then check your store to see what you'll get. And we assume that the score above 7 is a good score. So it means that you have, let's say, improved a lot, maybe your quality of receipt. Maybe you can do it first without the setup, make the setup and try it again and see if you improved here the quality of the email that you send. All right. Yes, okay, I have the rest of the question. So just of your question, Vadim, I have Odoo 18 online and activated multiple companies. For each of these companies, I put in place a dedicated domain. But when I create a calendar event, I do not have my domain on the video call. Yeah, video link, yeah, but okay, that's very interesting as a use case. It's not possible that it's something that is, just a missing behavior. So I mean, that's this part. So probably here it's going to probably get back again, let's say the domain name of the database of Odoo, and not the one from your database. That's interesting. To be honest, that's a topic that you could address to the support of Odoo. If that's what you are experiencing, because it's not possible that we just maybe do not cover that part. And it's an improvement to brook to the software, because if you properly set up all the rest and all the rest is working, there is no reason that this is not working as well. To make sure that your link is correct. So yes, maybe try to create here a support ticket, report a bug and explain what you experience as much as possible with some description here with unexpected behavior. Maybe some screenshot as well about what you experience, depending on each companies you are in and the fact that you always maybe get back to the the odoo.com domain of your database, and see what they think of this, and maybe try to to consider it as a bug fix or not. So I think it's interesting to get their insight regarding that. Okay. Of course, we could also, but that's a bit too optimistic to do it now. But we could take a look. You know what? I'm a bit curious. Let's still try to see. I'm going to create a new calendar event here. And so we have a plus Odoo meeting that is here with a method, set discuss video call location. So what you could try is to get access to this method and see what is hidden behind it. So I don't get it by heart. Set discuss video call. Okay. Exactly. So this is our action. Yes, and here we see a get base URL action that is going to be called. And this action, so here it keeps showing me the one above. Yes, okay. It doesn't want me to access the detail of this function, but that's probably where the issue is occurring. The fact that in that case you get the base URL and to check, if this method that we have here is going or not to select the URL of your database or the URL that you define by yourself based on the website that you have. It's interesting. To be honest, I would not be surprised, that it just takes the base URL of your database and that's it. But it's true that it could be, let's say, just an improvement then to be brought to the software. So yes, I invite you to create that feedback to the support team. All right. Next question. In our showroom, the salesperson uses an iPad to display items to customers, but does not have access to complete the sales. Okay, each customer is assigned a unique number and their selected items are prepared in advance before they proceed to the main post cacher for payment. How can I efficiently set up this workflow in Odoo? Okay, but so the salesperson don't have access to complete the sale. So I guess that's what you mean by that is that your salesperson are simply going to let's say, display the product image of the product. Or maybe what you say is that for now they don't have access to the tool. Sorry for that. What you could think of, is the fact that when you use the Odoo point of sale solution, and for example here my closest shop, so you need a user to open the shop. But once you are inside of the shop, you can just move from one employee to another without having one user access per employee. That's all the chance of that option, of course. So here I'm just going to close it again to add a bit more user sorry, on my point of sale. And so here I just come back to my closest shop and there they find that I can log in with employees. Exactly. So if I save now and come back to my shop, I open the register. Yes. So that's it. So for example, here in that case, Audrey opened the shop. Of course, the person who opened the shop is the one who can close it afterwards. But what is great is that then you can move from one employee to another like this. And you can give some, let's say, code to each of the employees to make sure that they can only connect if they have the corresponding code that they are assigned to. For example, here, Abigail does not have a code. It's here that you can define it. But if we quickly check if one of them do have a code, let's see. Okay, for example, Jeffrey Kelly, let's try 1, 2, 3, 4 to see what it looks like. I don't know if it will be applied. No, it will not be applied in live, of course. But maybe here, if I start again, no, I need to close my register again. And I just forgot who opened it. I think it was Audrey Peterson. No. Antoine, yes. Great, so if I open it again, no, and if I select Geoffrey Kelly, yes, you see I need to provide a password. So it's a way then to make sure that each of your, let's say, salespersons have a different access, you know, so they cannot connect and impersonate someone else. As they have the access here, they can indeed show the products to, let's say, to the customer. Let's say link it and just create here, assign it to the cart. They have a unique number, indeed, because here it's my 901. If another salesperson is going to create an order, he will get a different number. So you can give the number to the customer, you know, when he arrives. And then when he arrives at the final point of sale, the person is going to retrieve the correct order that is in the list here and pay it and just proceed with the payment, you know, for the customer at the end. So you see, and about the prepared in advance stuff, I mean, it's the same. I mean, you know, the person at the end or the person maybe that needs to prepare it can take a look at the post interface as well. They will see the orders that are added one by one, and they can simply, you know, dive from one to another and prepare the stuff depending on each number once they are completed. So it's a way then for you to make sure that the salesperson, let's say, don't need an access to Odoo. They can use it if one user opened the point of sale at first on the iPad. And finally, then to make sure that each salesperson can use with this unique number by adding products and showing them to the customer. People can prepare it, and finally they can pay for it at the main POS cashier. Tell me what you think, but it seems to meet your requirements in that case. All right, next question. Is there an app to track employee violations, monitor their performance, and automatically apply deductions to their payslip? It's very complicated to say that there is an app for that, because it really depends on what do you mean by what is an employee evaluations, what is a performance, and how do you compute a payslip basically. So it involves a few things, and so it's not really easy to give an answer for that. I think it involves a lot of different apps, you know, to be honest, to make sure that you can make it efficient. For example, employee violations. It's a bit tricky, because here I don't exactly know what you mean by this. You need to know that not all of the actions of users in Odoo are tracked. Okay, only some of them. That's basically what you can see as well in the chatter, for example. There. And you need to know that each thing that are recorded in the chatter can be recorded in the messages technical menu. So basically here you get all of the activities, or at least all of the tracked activities that you get on some actions. You could as well create automation rules that for some specific actions, then you are going to record some stuff. What you could say is also, no, but I want to work in a reactive way, not proactive way. And so maybe I noticed that my employee made some violations, so I'm going to record it on his employee profile. At that moment, indeed, why not? And then you can simply start from the employee and record the information somewhere, of course. So either by creating a new menu or by loading a document, anything. So, you know, so that's the first point. The performance, it depends on the role. I mean, performance of a salesperson will be based, of course, on the total amount that is sold. So we'll start from the sales app or maybe accounting app based on what is invoiced. If you take a look at a consultant, you will take a look at the timesheet maybe about how it's done. So yeah, so it really depends also on about what you mean by performance. So it may involve many apps. But if your question is to, at the end, to make it all automated, to deduct it from the payslip, it's tricky because, of course, you can, because the payroll module, which is the payroll that I think is the best one in Odoo, you can use it in a lot of ways, you know, and especially like in a salary rule, you can call some Python code and call any data coming from any model. Basically, that's it. So you can, you know, be very efficient in the way you define the rules. And so indeed, you could, for example, take a look at the employee model and see what are the violations that you put. Take a look at your sales, take a look at the timesheets, and all of them afterwards are going to maybe apply for some computation of a salary rule to be deducted from the payslip. So you see that's possible, I mean, to do it like this. But what you need to know is first, can you generate the payslip of your employee in payroll, okay, in Odoo payroll, is not obvious. For example, in most of the European countries, it's not possible for now. We can do it now in Switzerland and Belgium, but it's pretty limited. In Africa, it's more possible to do it. Okay, because let's say the legal constraints are let's say allow us to configure it in Odoo, in a way. So that could work, but it's true that it's quite a very large topic that needs to be integrated in a payroll implementation. And for that, you first need to make sure that you have all of the salary rules to make sure it's correct, which is very not an easy task. And then indeed try to maybe add a rule based on the employee performance to make sure that they can maybe get a deduction on the payslip based on this. Usually, if you were one of my customers, one of the partner I work with, I would advise you, of course, not in the chatter here, but at least on your side, to put all of those requirements on a sheet of paper, have some predefined rules to explain exactly, okay, this is what I call a violation. If I get a violation, this is a deduction that should be applied on the payslip. All the logic should be clear in your mind, and then try to apply it in Odoo and find the right apps for that. But interesting question. All right. Let's see. I have created a new vendor or customer in the purchasing or sales module. And I want this vendor or customer to have an auto-generated ID. Okay. When I create the next vendor or customer, it should automatically receive the next ID. How can I achieve this auto ID generation in Odoo? And then you explain the same about the stock. Okay, that's a good question. The thing is that you can get inspired of what happens in the sales app, for example. When you create a new quote, here, I see that I get a new, let's say, reference, as you say, a new ID for my sales order based on a sequence. And this sequence is defined in my technical menu here. And so I can take a look at my sale order sequence. S, and then 5 digits, and 1, and my next number is 40. So that's how it is set up. So this model exists. The sales order model, of course, exists. What we may miss as an information here is a link between both. Is to make sure, okay, here I can link this sequence to the name field of my sales order, which is not the name field actually. It's the number field, but it's called name. What we're going to take a look at now is still in the code. So I would like to go in the code here of Odoo. Take a look at my sale app. No. There's a lot of sale, that's right. Maybe I need to look for it like this. Great. Sale module. I have my model here, and I will take a look at my sale order. And my sale order, I'll probably find somewhere the definition of my name. So not this one, but this one. Yes. And here, so by default, it will be new. That's what we see indeed in the screen. But we don't see it here about how it is computed. Okay. It could have been interesting. I mean, it's defined somewhere. Okay, it's maybe not defined here, but it's defined somewhere in the database. Luckily, that's a question that I am used to, so I get an answer to provide. At least, that's what I hope. Let me check quickly if I have something about this. I used to. Let me quickly check, and if I don't, then I will at least explain the logic to you. But you need to create a server action actually to make it work. Yes. Yeah, okay. Now it's even an automation rule that we need to put. Okay, so I have the answer. I took a look at my notes. Basically, the first thing to do is to create your sequence. So basically, we'll start then from the sequence here and call it, let's say if I take your case, for example, the customer sequence. Customer sequence is true that I did not notice that, but it's a bit, it's a bit tricky because you need to know a vendor or a customer is the same thing in Odoo, it's a contact. So we need to find a criteria to make sure that we can identify if this is a customer or a vendor, maybe a checkbox, for example. That's what I will assume in that case. But let's imagine then the customer sequence is this one. As you said, is custo S. And then you put 4 digits, and the next number is 1. So I have my customer sequence. Then I need to go on my contacts. As I said, I will add a criteria to define if yes or not my here contact is a vendor or a customer. I don't have any other choice, of course, because in Odoo it's not defined by default. It's defined through the field of supplier rank and customer rank, but it's a field that is computed, you know, with the ongoing sales orders and purchase orders, or at least vendor bills and customer invoices. And so it's not possible to use it, you know, as criteria first to identify if it is a vendor or a customer. So yes, here customer, vendor, like this. And there I would say contact type. Great. So then what I'm going to do is I leave this page open and I will start creating my automation rule. The automation rule will be like, say, like a sequence of customer. The trigger will be on save when I update my created on date. And I will only apply it if my customer type, my contact type actually, but I will just type, yes, it was there, perfect, is a customer. And then I'm just going to add an action, which will be an execute code action, in which I'm going to put the following code. So for products in records, I want to, not products, of course, for contact in records. And there, of course, I not mentioned that, but we need, of course, to know where this, let's say, reference will be put. I could use this field, for example, the reference field. So contact ref should be equal. So we will assign a value to this one. And here I just take a look at my environment containing my sequence, which is this model. And this model is called, here we saw it, IR sequence. And finally, we use a method, you know, that is defined on the model IR sequence. So that's what we should have to take a look at. But maybe it's a bit too late. Well, anyway, I mean, the code, we can look for it afterwards. So it's next by code. And next by code, then I need to put in the brackets the reference of my sequence. And I think that's the code that I have here. So custo sequence. And I can add it in my code like this. And then if I now decide to create a new contact and mention that this is a customer and I save, it's going to assign here my reference. Oh, and I misspelled it. I put custo and not custo, but I mean, you get the point. And so, of course, you need to apply the same for the vendor and the same for the product. But basically, at the end, it will work. So you need to have 3 different sequences, as well as, of course, 3 different automation rules to make sure that you can apply it in each corresponding case. Let's maybe, as I said, take a look at the definition of that formula that I use. So next by code, yes, and here it is. It's in the base module. Okay, so of course, and in the model IR sequence, and here it is. And so as we can see, we need to give it a sequence code. So what we defined there, for it to compute the following things. And so basically, it's going to return something. Yes, about the next sequence. Well, anyway, here you can then dive into the code and understand how it works. Basically, we understand it. It's true that several things happen because it assigns first the value, let's say the next value of your sequence, and it's also going to adapt the next number. Here, if I refresh my page, the 1 will become 2 because I just already used the number 1. So all of these things need, of course, to be part of this method that we called That is a next bytecode method. So a very common question, of course, that you can use then to bring some more sequence in your database. Well, I think that's it for today. So it was a very interesting Odoo Insider. Thank you very much for attending. As a reminder, I will leave you here with the small calendar for the next sessions. Okay, and so as I said, next week you will be there to meet 2 point of sale experts that will be able to answer your questions. Okay, so feel free to ask any questions related to the IoT as we discussed today. Thank you very much, and for my case, see you later in another regular Q&A session. Bye bye.